Before we dig in, a quick thank you to the sponsors ready to grow with the Soil Sisters. Tejas Tonic is the official beverage of the Texas Soil Sisters. We especially love that the hemp for Tejas Tonic is organically farmed in the Texas Hill Country, with farms in both Dripping Springs and Lukenbach, Texas. The Soil Sisters podcast is powered by B&P Electric. Whether you're building, remodeling, installing low-voltage landscape lighting, or in need of an inspection, B&P is your Central Texas electrical contractor. Find links to our sponsors in the podcast show notes or head over to txsoilsisters.co. You're listening to the Soil Sisters podcast, where we dig in on family farming and ranching, regenerative agriculture, healthy living, and planting seeds in our community. We invite you to listen, subscribe, and grow with the Soil Sisters. I'm Joanna Newting, joined by my blood, soul, and soil sister, Crystal, along with one of our soil sisters from another mister up the road in Dallas, Texas, Arlana Brumfield. Everyone, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Arlana, welcome. I'm so happy to have you.
Yes, and I'm so happy to finally be connected, be back in the room with you guys.
Oh my gosh, we had so much fun at Regen Ag School together. And I was thinking this morning about that first share circle that we had.
Yes.
And you were sitting, there was, the big circle outside, and you were sitting directly across from Crystal and I.
Yes.
And the thing I remember is that you were not afraid to share. And Crystal and I are just sitting across from you, just smiling and nodding our head the whole time. So I knew immediately that you were a fellow soil sister, and we had so much fun getting to know you and are excited to introduce you to the Soil Sisters tribe.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you a secret. I was scared. Oh my gosh. I was shaking in my boots. But I had just two things happen. One, I had just drunk some mushroom coffee with some moringa, and it gets me fired up. I had just drank it too much. That natural energy was pumping. That was one. And two, I was very, very nervous because I was kind of way at the end of the circle. But in my head, I thought, how can I really tell all that makes me who I am and my mission? How do I sum it up? I didn't know how. But I do know I'm so passionate that I just kind of step into it. So I'm like Beyonce. Actually, once I step on stage, that alter ego takes over. And then the scared little girl was still there. The alter ego was the one doing the talking. And I'm in the background inside going, you're still talking, shut up. Oh my God, you're saying too much. Just be quiet. And so they wrapped it up. And so that experience actually haunted me because I was like, you don't want to tell too much to let everybody in. But I'm still really glad that alter ego. I need to find a name for the alter ego.
Yes, you do. My therapist in my 20s named mine Anna Dana.
Anna we're going to think of that. I need a name for that alter ego, but it shows up whenever I'm talking about what I'm passionate about. But what I have done is I've embraced my passion. It's true, it's authentic, and it's very organic. It's from a whole life experience, what I've experienced as a family, generational, in college education. There's a lot of substance behind it. So I just have gotten comfortable with just walking in what I'm passionate in.
Well, I love that. And so that's what you have done as founder of Soilution Holistic Ag, which combines an urban farm hidden in the heart of downtown Dallas, where you are demonstrating holistic healing of the mind, body, the urban ecosystem, and the socioeconomic disparity in the BIPOC community. And so gardening and farming is just like bringing all of that together for you. And we are so inspired by what you're doing that we want to give you a platform to talk a little bit more about it. And ultimately, by the end of the show, letting people know how they can, support your efforts and get involved. So let's start off by talking about what you've witnessed and you've seen with the nutrition related disease in the BIPOC community, the thing that really kickstarted you to get this going?
Yes. So in the past 10 years, more recently in the past 5 years, the numbers have gone to be astronomically dangerous. But little over 20 years ago, I'm not trying to, tell my age, because I look all young and smooth. But in 2000, 2001, I was in the Army and I went overseas. I'm a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. So I know a little thing about dirty water, you know, brown water. And it's a predominantly Black and brown community. There's really almost over 90%. And so when I left that community and went overseas and joined the Army, I was exposed to a different avenue of nutrition and health. And so when I was in Europe overseas, what they call healthy was the highest level of organic, most expensive in the United States. But this was a basic everyday life for them. Fresh produce, fruits and vegetables, grass-fed animals, and they absolutely did not use enhancements in synthetic chemicals and pesticides. And so you were like, what? That's boggling. The fruit was huge. Everybody thought it was GMO, but that was just the natural way of life for them in all grocery stores. And it tasted so amazing. Then I returned to the United States, actually right after 9/11. I was shell shocked at the exposure to so many chemicals in the environments. I had such a long list of allergies, and then my body went into just haywire. I just started having so many health issues. Well, then that just made me sensitive and cognizant of what was going on in my community anyway. Everyone was desensitized. They didn't have the luxury of going overseas in Europe, eating those foods, and then coming back to Louisiana and Texas and was like, oh, my body was like, oh my God, go back, let's go back. I was literally sick. And then every system in my body just started to reject me. And so genetically, I was pre-designed and predisposed for my DNA to have high blood pressure, hypertension, high cholesterol, heart, cardiovascular disease. Oh man, you name it. Hormonal imbalance issues that my family had, and cancer was very prevalent in our community. So I had a degree in biology in the lab, learning the microbes. I had already had experience going to nursing school, and I was like, that wasn't for me prior to going into the military. I want to work with patients. But microbiology was my true love. I couldn't stop looking at the lab work, and I didn't want to see the patient. I wanted to look at the lab work. And so I started seeing in the Black community that the numbers were really high. Kidney disease, dialysis, diabetes, and it was such a way of life that they had little nicknames for it. It was just a way of life to them. They didn't see that this is extreme. This is the problem. So they just thought it was normal at the family dinners to say, hey, I can't eat any more pound cake because I got sugar. That's what they call it. But diabetes, I got sugar. And then everybody had heart medicine. It was normal. They thought that was just a way of life. As the years progressed and my education progressed, and in the studies, I changed that degree to cell biology and clinical lab science. Because again, I liked what was under the microscope more than the personal interaction. What's going on under the microscope? And we started studying these chemicals that you would consider organic, but the definition organic in the education in the collegiate doctoral level just means that it has carbon molecules in it. So organic is made in the lab. And so organic doesn't mean it came from the earth and grown, depending on who you're talking to.
So they just introduced an alternative definition for organic.
Yes, organic is in itself. If you take organic chemistry, that means you are studying carbon-based molecules. So that can go from nitrogen to a human, to a frog, to tridimethylcyclohexane. Yeah. And so I was learning, it was like, some of this stuff y'all teaching me is on the ingredients label. Hold on. And I started being intrigued, and I started looking at the ingredients label. I started looking at some of the stuff that we were testing and cooking, and I was finding it in one popular one that always strikes me is it's a type of bleaching agent. They put it in sunscreens, something cycling. I can't remember right now. It's going to come to me. But it's in a lot of our foods. And I was like, why is it in the food? I get why it was needed for a sunscreen. It's a very high potent with sunscreen, making it 50 and 65 SPF. I don't need that in my belly. Then I started noticing that there was, as I continued to study in cell biology, that there was a serious issue with the digestive system. There were diseases popping up that didn't exist or just was very unpopular. It was rare. Now it's very common. Crohn's
Mhm.
disease being one of them, leaky gut, and gluten allergies. So I'm like,
Mhm.
what in the world is going on? We're allergic to, how you allergic to gluten? I'm pretty sure I learned this in all the wheat and bread products. That's odd. And the correlation just started to be with the chemicals, the exposure, and the over processing of food. Well, I had the luxury of going back to school. I have had multiple children. I got a whole crew of them now. And I went back to school after I made sure that they were on their path. They're going back to school. I was studying holistic herbs and healing because I was feeling more and more uncomfortable with pharmaceutical drugs. So there's this catch to when you teach someone how to make drugs in the lab, you teach them the basis of these chemicals. Well, you may have the honor and privilege of realizing that's not medical care. That's not taking care of someone with these chemicals. And the rate of cancer continues to increase. So that education and the experience of what I was seeing in the community started to kind of come together. And that military profession that I had tested the water. We tested sanitation and the food. Then I had a background in cooking. And so it started to change. The culture started to change. Everything started to be able to be fast. I was taught that you be in the kitchen. It was harvested or butchered from the family. Even in the city, we still went back to the country and got the produce and what was butchered, and it was cut up and put it in our freezer, and we cooked it, and it had this wonderful taste to it. But then as I'm cooking over the years, I worked as a chef, the food started to have a long, long shelf life, and it started to be packaged. So it took away that experience, chopping up the food, seasoning, sauteing it, which is a big part of my culture in New Orleans. And so the next generation, they weren't trying to cook that 6-hour gumbo anymore. They wanted the
Yeah.
fast way. They started making gumbo roux in a mix. And I was like in the store, what is this mix? How you put it in a jar? I'm not cooking this. But it started to become more prevalent of the things that was normal for me to eat that started to become instant grits, instant oats. The things that I was feeding to my kids, the list got much, much longer. And then I started noticing some of these things that I use in the lab, in the ingredients of the food. So I changed my degree over to public health. And it was actually a wonderful experience because I didn't want to necessarily go be, I was older. I was in my 40s. I had 5 kids. I didn't necessarily want to be a surgeon or in the hospital at 50 something years old. I wanted to do something right now with the education. So I changed the degree. It's time. The hour is here. Y'all better start praying.
I know Crystal's clock goes off.
Oh, look. But that's funny because that's the next point I'm going to make about the change. The alarm was sounded with the food. So there started to become some arguments about the correlation between autism and vaccines. We did learn in my clinical lab science degree how to separate different chemicals. Someone could actually hire me to work with vaccines or with chemicals. I actually had 3 job proposals to work at Frito-Lay, and I can't remember the other 2. And maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud on a thing, holistic people, all of a sudden the internet start working,
We can delete that out if you want us to.
conspiracy theory. No. So these chip companies, they hire students right out of with these chemistry backgrounds and these degrees to work in their food manufacturing processes because about 10, 12 years ago, they became a thing learning how to pulverize fat and sugar. Pulverize means they made fat, sugar, and salt so small, and the molecule so small that you would get a very, very high dose of it in the chips. And so the studies in my college education taught me that they were targeting addictive amounts of fat, sugar, and salt in the food so that, as the theme says, you will never just eat just one. You won't be able to eat one. And so I was intrigued. I learned this in the nutrition, and I was like, wait, what? They literally had started to make food so micro-sized addictive properties inside the food, these chemicals, that you would not be able to stop eating it. It also overrides your natural genetics. If you came from a very slim family, everybody's skinny, that wasn't the case anymore. They can override your natural metabolism. Also, it was influencing the brain to the point where you couldn't just stop eating it. And then when your body got immune to it, they would switch it and then add something else in the chemicals. Well, in the Black and brown community, some genius had decided that they really enjoy food. Being from New Orleans and our culture being surrounded by food, some parts of Texas, so including Hispanics, it is the number one way to, we call it food apartheid. The number one way to destroy a community and the fastest way to control this community and break it down is through their food and their water. So my public health degree, with the right education, with my experiences over the lifetime, and I started seeing the numbers. I've been on the earth long enough to see back in 2000 when I was overseas in Europe, and now here in 2025, the rate of cancer, obesity, which is the number one under the umbrella. Obesity falls diabetes, high cholesterol, stroke, you name it, cancer. It all was just clustered in these cities of Black and brown communities. And so I was like, that can't be right. I'm a woman of color. Maybe I'm being sensitive and I'm looking a little too deep into it. So maybe that just can't be right. It can't be right that you're just putting all of the most toxic, addictive, ultra processed food in these Black communities. Well, as I continue my education, then I learned about food deserts, food swamps, meaning that in these communities, they're definitely not putting fresh produce, and there's no farmers markets. There absolutely is no Whole Foods, Sprouts in these communities, but they are on every corner, small markets that have processed, packaged, over processed foods that are really bad for the kids and adults that are eating them. And it's everywhere. If you get up and you got to grab something to eat, there's a fried chicken place up the street. There's a corner store where they have the free processed meals you can throw in the microwave. It was just flooding into these communities. So here in Dallas, they did a study, and it actually correlates with every urban city, that if you go 15 miles north outside of Dallas into just 15 miles, and I'm going to say 15 just to be a little bit more broad because I actually am 7 miles from this destination. We go north to where there's less and less Black and brown people. Their income changes maybe about 10 to 20,000. They're just a little bit over the poverty line. The life mortality rate is increased by 20 years. So just living in my neighborhood and going up 3 exits down into the south where it's highly populated by the BIPOC community, they're dying 20 years earlier. That can't be true. Well, the statistics are there and showing them. They put this food swamp means that there's the most toxic, terrible food in their neighborhoods. And then the food desert means that they have to go really far. Their income will not allow them to drive those 7 to 15 miles that I drive to go to the Sprouts. So that's where the problem really starts. Then as I started to really look into a little bit more, what they're kicking out into their water and into their soil is just as bad. So that's what they call it, food apartheid. In this urban community, and as well as New Orleans, and as well as, let's see, where did I visit? And I was, Jackson, Mississippi. I went to Jackson, Mississippi, and I just, my heart just was, oh my God. I had never seen so many amputees in their wheelchair.
From all the diabetes.
Strokes.
Wow.
And it's just a part of the community. They're crossing the street,
Wow.
they're at the light, they're getting on a bus. It's you could just see the sickness and the illness, the kidney disease in the community is evident on their skin. The kids have the highest rate of asthma, ADHD from the chemicals added to foods like dyes and irritants to the brain. It's at an all-time high. They actually run out of Adderall in these communities because the prescriptions are so high. So that's when I go, okay, now I've had enough.
Yeah.
We have to change that.
Nowadays, Finding time for in real life connection is a challenge in and of itself. So, I talked to Crystal about a modern spin on the classic farmers co op, and we'd be delighted if you join us. The concept is pretty simple: give $5, receive support. You donate $5 or more per month and gain access to the Texas Soil Sisters Co op monthly online meetup. This is a private but open dialogue where you can bring questions and receive support from our growing community. Maybe it's questions about industrial hemp production, or you're looking for land, or maybe a land steward, or connecting with alternative land use opportunities. Maybe you're in the beginning stage of off ramping from conventional ag like we are. We love passing along the powerful education we're receiving and helping other soil sisters and misters like you find solutions. So, if you're a gardener, land steward, farmer, rancher, or limited resource landowner, you're invited to join us on our monthly co op call with your donation. Sign up at txsoilsisters.co/grow. These monthly meetings are not recorded. They take place on the third Monday of every month at 6 p.m. Central Time. Sign up at txsoilsisters.co/grow. So then, yeah, you took all of this, and this has become fuel to your fire to make these changes starting in your own community. So, when did Soilution Holistic Ag become a thing that you're like, okay, I'm taking my first step, I'm doing my part?
You know what? The paper dried. The actual formation on the certificate is April of 2024. But Solutions was a progression of 15 years of my own backyard container gardening, me trying to create videos, watching me cook with fresh ingredients. I was making Facebook videos, no knowledge whatsoever about being a content creator or anything like that. I just was like, keep eating your own food.
Somebody
Know
needs
what's
to
in
see
your
this.
food.
Yeah.
Making gumbos and preparing meals. And I was cutting the seasonings and showing them and sauteing it and showing them. Enjoy falling in love with your food. I originally started a business that didn't evolve because I just didn't have the business acumen. And I'm really glad because this evolved from it instead. It was called Fork Play, Forke. Play. It's a play on words because it was kind of foreplay, fork play, depending on if you was an adult or kids. If it was kids, it's fork play. But if there weren't no kids around and it was the right setting, I could do it. I would say it was foreplay. Can we get back to eating as couples, a little sexy, prepping and cutting with your partner, throwing some produce at them, eating it while you're cooking, snuggling and getting back to the table. That's actually a big part of my relationship, actually. And my kids get back to enjoying and kind of this romantic and love side of the food, prepping it in ways where it's a family experience or a couple's experience. And I wanted to teach couples how to just go back to that. That was the original model. Then over time, me learning, and then the public health degree that exposed the statistics to me. And for me to see that I wasn't a conspiracy theorist, this is actually real. And to just, and then I started working with a nonprofit where I serve in the high-risk homeless community. I cook for a church once a month, and we serve the homeless community. And I'm seeing it. Then we do mobile food pantries twice a month in the highest high-risk area of the high schools. And I'm seeing it in these neighborhoods. And I was thinking, even the food from the food pantry is not conducive for a person of color. You're going to give them all these canned goods, perishable goods. There's a hurricane. You don't have no power. You can go pop open a can, need some tuna and whatever. That stuff, all that salty stuff, that processed packaged food is not intended for the body. And so I wanted specifically people of color because you have enough adversity and focus on your skin color in the job force. You have enough issues with what's going on socially with police and so forth. The most easiest thing that we can control is what you're going to put into your mouth. And so Solutions started because I was interning as a public health student. They had a garden class. I have been gardening in my backyard. I'm actually a generational farmer that I did not know I was a generational farmer. The call kind of picked me up and took me in. But I was doing what I had saw my grandparents do on our farm in Mississippi, where I was forced to be on the farm. And I learned a whole lot. Well, I was doing that in my backyard to just manage the anger I had inside from serving overseas and being a Black female veteran. I was just angry about what I was seeing in the community. I was angry with what I was dealing with in my own body. I didn't have hypertension like the rest of the family. I did not have diabetes, which runs very prevalent in my family. I didn't deal with obesity. But then I came back and now I have all these health issues and my body is going against me and my body refuses to give in. I eat something with a lot of processed food, I have a migraine. I feel sick, I'm upset, I break out. I am struggling to keep my face clear. Struggling.
Now, let's talk about this for a minute, how the power of the garden to help you deal with that anger, the health issues, whatever. I was looking on your website and you have a video of Howard, what's it, Terrence
Terrence
Howard? Is that
Howard.
his name? I love Terrence Howard. He's so
Yes.
smart, but him
Yes.
talking about getting into gardening because of the power of grounding. And
Yes.
so, I just want to talk a little bit about the therapy because this is the mind body piece of it that you
Yes.
talked about.
Yes. And that's where actually, that's why I was saying foreplay wasn't ready to be evolved. Solutions kind of got to see the whole big picture because I was really not aware of how much I was healing myself from that anger and that, what do we call it? PTSD
Mm-hmm.
from being in the military. Some of those experiences, it's a big transition going from a structured military, which you think is structured, right? And then 9/11 was actually what I experienced when I got out and came back. And so these different experiences, I came back to the community and being angry. I did have a hard time dealing with anxiety and clinical depression. I had a hard time transitioning into a community where there was just always a challenge based on your skin color and women not getting paid. And I was like, oh my God. They will open the door for you as a veteran, but in a veteran community, I lived outside the military base for 18 years. Everybody had PTSD and anxiety. And so the gardening, it it was just second nature for me to do because I saw my parents doing it in the city. And so I started doing, not knowing the statistics and the knowledge of how I was healing myself. And I used to be angry with how much my mom used to hate stay in the garden when I was younger. Like, how long you gonna be out there, lady? You need to come home and cook. You out there in that garden for hours. The sun has went down. She's still out there. I know why. I had to discipline myself. When you're a mother and the world is so busy and cell phone technology, appointments, kids, crying, bills. In the garden, I was kind of just hiding. And I thought that, it was just quiet. But it turns out the soil is designed by God to heal you.
Yes.
There's actually not only the vibration and energy from the soil and the plants matches your calm state of vibration and energy. There's a natural charge and energy in the soil, but it actually makes your body produce endorphins. Smelling that soil, working in the soil, it is by design. We came from the soil, and it is like, okay, welcome back. And I tell sometimes in my garden classes, it's actually a very selfish exchange because we think that we're getting something out of the soil by these plants that we can eat, but the soil is actually drawing in and taking all that negative energy and carbon dioxide and transforming it into something healing. So the actual part of the soil, and for someone that's like, that sounds a little mojo-y. No, no, no. This is scientifically proven. There is a releasing of serotonins and endorphins coming from the body that is also from the soil. And then to just take it another further level with the vibrations in the plant and the vibrations of the soil. But everyone seems to know a little bit about mindfulness, taking that time to just focus on one thing and slow your breathing. So study shows, and I am going to have some workshops on the farm. I'm looking forward to that. Studies show that your heart rate decreases when you surround yourself with the sounds of nature. It is a natural beat in the nature of your heart rate and your lungs all match the rhythm of nature. So if you sit down for a minimum of 10 minutes, no electronics, listen to the birds, let the wind blow on you, breathe in what the soil is giving out to you to heal you, your heart rate will decrease. And I've done the experiment in my class to prove it. Their heart rate jumped up several decibels just for the fact that I told them to close your devices and put your phone away for 5 minutes. Some people were like, I don't know you like that. And I was like, look at yourself. Look at how tensed up you are. Separate from this technology. And then the traffic in your car. And so I played the traffic. Your heart rate is elevated. You can't like that every day. It takes a toll. So let's go to nature and let it heal. But putting your hands in that soil is actually releasing it. And I'm going to take it a little bit further. People aren't ready for me to tell you that there is some bacteria and living organisms in that soil waiting for you to touch them. They're giving off things for you to heal you. And those exact same microorganisms are what you need to be healthy. And because we have separated that relationship and that connection to the soil and the earth with busyness, city life, urbanization, shoes, afraid of bugs, and then lastly, chemicals, we're not getting that advantage. So I just told you the reasons, but it's a strange paradigm shift. When I'm on the farm, I am so invigorated and charged and full of energy. And I feel this joy and this happiness when I'm on the farm. And it's a big shift from someone that had PTSD and anxiety. I could tell you it's a big shift. But when I do my other jobs, I have other careers that I don't always share because people get a little, a little angst to know that a woman can balance 4 or 5 things and do it very well. I'm learning that people really get weird about that.
Well, and certainly when we're doing things like this, what we're doing with Soil Sisters, what you're doing with Soilutions, we have to. We have to
Yeah.
have an extra hustle because, my sister and we were just talking about this a couple of nights ago is farmers aren't taken care of the way they need to be. And so we have to have the grit and the sturdy
Yes.
gal mentality to do these extra things because this thing that we're so passionate about that's not paying us
Yes.
enough to make ourselves fully functioning individuals. We have to have these other things, but we know how important it is. And so we're willing to do it.
And that's really the change that we're making, that we're
Yes.
working towards, is shifting the whole dynamic and the whole way things are happening now. It's like, okay, as a country, we're spending billions of dollars on war and propping up war. Let's shift that into farming and let's create healthy soil that creates healthy and happy communities and families and individuals so that our country can be great with like healthy, happy, intelligent people that can
Yes.
make society run in a beautiful way. It's mind-boggling how much money is spent on the wrong things.
And so profit is actually what drives.
The chemical industrial complex.
Yes, and it's growing and growing because profit drives that. Profit drives why you continue to find a different way to make the food sit on the shelf for 3, 4 years before it molds. Profit drives wanting to constantly get you to buy it, eat it, buy it. Profit is driving those things. But I'm constantly trying to visualize and even teach this to my children. You have to think ahead, 3 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead. So my sons are home and I was teaching them that. I sent them to the store, buy something. They didn't have enough money. And they was like, put it back. Let's go. And when they came home, I said, boys, I'm going to need you guys to learn. You have to think 3 to 10 steps ahead. I'm 3 to 10 steps ahead already when I sent you to the store. You're getting an ingredient that's going into the meal to feed you, to have something to eat tomorrow. And they was like, you got so much food in this house, Mom. I don't even understand. I was like, have you looked at how tall you are? Have you looked at how much muscles you have? Do you know how much you eat? And I was like, you guys are home with me and I go into mom mode. I always have to think 10 steps ahead. So when I sent you to the store, did it never dawn on you to maybe I'll loan mom the money and buy the ingredient because she asked for it? I said, you came out the ingredient. This is the only time we have for me to prepare that meal for you. And so if I did not take the planning to prepare that meal, we're going to be out and about. They're home from college and high school. We're going to be doing this cool stuff. We're going to go see the movie. We're going to go, they wanted to go paintball and then they want to go see their girlfriend. And then somebody goes, I'm hungry. What you do? You're out and about. There's no food cooked. You go and you go buy something. We live in a food swamp. You're going to go eat the fried chicken. You're going to go buy the egg rolls or them chicken meat sticks that they sell at 7-Eleven or
Yeah, the
QT.
fake meat.
Enoch loves QT. Oh my God. Can we go to QT to get a treat? That's my 6-year-old. And I was like, who put this boy onto this? And so the hot dogs, and I was like, then I'm thinking ahead. All of my kids have allergies that I have treated and have resolved for them when they were younger with raw honey. I'm true to this thing. I treated it. They're healthy, but now they're sniffing, they hawking. And I'm like, they left for college and they coming back with all these cooties. I'm not there to treat them, and they're eating processed food. And I was like, y'all killing me. And the ADD is off the chain. I was like, I don't know how y'all make it through college. Y'all can't even focus. Do y'all realize how your attention span? I see it. And I was like, I was trying to feed you well while you were here. Take the time and cook and sit down and enjoy. And then they were washing dishes too. So I was like, let me cook while y'all in here washing these dishes. When y'all leave. And I was teaching them steps ahead. So since society is driven by profit, work. We don't even make the time out to have our meals ready. We don't make the time out to decide. So decision fatigue kicks in and you buy whatever's close and whatever convenient. If you're a person of color, unfortunately, it's going to be toxic. It's going to be bad for you. And then you feel like crap.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, you're going to pay for it. You're going to be sluggish, you have a migraine, your diet. You don't even realize that all your attention level at work. If you're a child, they're hyperactive or they're sleepy or they're crabby. There's some things. Enoch cannot have a lot of sugar. He can't do high fructose. He turns into some crazy child. He starts, and then he starts crying. Then he's sleepy. And then I'm like, yo, who gave you a soda? You know, you can see it in my child. And I was like, the whole society is like that.
Yes, it's the whole society is like that because I can see that in my friends' kids. But the thing that is so important to relay is that just by changing those habits, creating the whole food habit versus the food like substance habit, you can reverse the disease.
Absolutely.
You know, you can change what's happening. Your child may have ADD or OCD or whatever, but I bet if they drank more water, you cut out all the crap, that you would see that behavioral difference. It's not like a death sentence that they're going to have it forever and they need to stay on pharmaceutical drugs. But I feel like it is a fight that a lot of parents don't want to have with their kid.
Exactly.
It's actually a fight that we have as adults. I actually have a video that I'm going to share. I didn't post it. So I'm learning how to, that's the office, the business side of this, learning how to post. So I have a Wellness Wednesday or Tuesday tips. I'm not sure which one. But I made this video where it was Wellness Wednesday, where I said, this is the beginning. It was my first video for the new year. I haven't shared it yet because I want to edit it, kind of make it straight to the point. Society makes you kind of, they have some names for you and they stereotype you when you're focused on your health. When you don't want to you want to go against the grain. You don't want to do the pharmaceuticals anymore. You want to be healthy. They come up with names and then they actually start to treat you like, well, you think you're better than us. I see things on social media. So she don't eat deli meat. You bougie, And I was like, first off, I'm a little vain, a little. I don't like
we all have a little ego.
Yeah, I don't like that big belly swollen fupa. I didn't even know what a fupa was until the past 2 years. What is a fupa? Where did y'all come up with that? Now y'all made it normal? It's a normal thing? No, I don't like that. I don't like the fupa. And then the inflammation around the belly, the issues with your hormones. In women of color, the rate of her having a hysterectomy is 2 times higher than someone that's non-color. they have a higher rate of fibroids, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and endometriosis from the hormones and the pesticides that is being put into foods. Hormones are steroids in the lab. A hormone is a steroid. It communicates with your body. So there are times when some medicines aren't working and then they come out with the big dog, the steroid. That's because the steroid communicates directly with some cells, right? So if you have a serious allergic reaction, I mean, it's really bad. That Benadryl not working, Claritin, they pull out the steroid. And the steroid is going to get the job done because it's going to communicate directly to their body. It's going to attach to it and say, change. I need you to do something different. Well, they put the steroids in your food. They put the steroids in the meat. They put the steroids in to boost these animals' mass, the body, and then you're consuming it. And so what are you doing? Constantly tell your body, work hard, work good, work this, do this. It's just chaos. And so we have this disease when you put these steroids in. And then the pesticides that they don't want the bugs to eat the crop up for more profit and to boost these crops. Those pesticides are killing the body.
You saying that just reminded me of part of our conversation. We recorded a podcast with our father. And when we're talking about shifting from traditional to regenerative agriculture, I don't think this got said on the show, but in a conversation afterwards, my dad said, yeah, but you're going to have lower yields.
Ah,
And I'm like, yes, we will have lower yields. I agree with you, but we will have more nutrient density and a higher value in what we do produce. And so that becomes the piece that keeps farmers from going from conventional to regenerative, because their mind, like you said, it's all about the Benjamins. And so they need to have higher yields. That's what he equates to a successful crop.
Well, and
well,
the lower yields are only going to be for a season or two
that's
seasons,
right.
until, depending upon what you're able to put on your soil and the way that you're able to
That's right.
support the living biology. Because in one season, you could go from, okay, lower yields at the beginning, and in the next season have yields that you could not previously have imagined. And
Yes.
so it literally just depends on your ability to transition from that to here, in like, how much money do you have, how much resources can you get your hands on, how much help can you get to do that. So it's like, from a lack mentality, sure, you're going to have a season or two of
Yes.
lower yields.
Well, that goes back to the think 3 to 10 steps ahead.
Mhm.
So I can take 100,000. These are easy numbers. 100,000 for the conventional farmer, and we're going to go prepare the land to sell produce. And I'm going to give the 100,000 to the regenerative ag farmer. We're both going to sell watermelons. He's going to take his 100,000 and he's going to use 30 to 40,000 for pesticides and fertilizer. I need to keep the bugs from killing all of my, because the watermelon really draws some bugs. And I need to fertilize. That's what I'm taught. I need to put fertilizer on this land so it's going to grow. He's going to double the dollar value. He's going to get $200,000 worth of watermelon. Now the regenerative ag over here, now this guy used 30 to 40% in inputs. He had less money for seeds. He had 70,000, but he ended up with 200,000. He doubled that profit, right? The regenerative ag person is going to go ahead and put the whole 100,000 in seeds, and they're going to probably only grow 140 to 160,000. They're not going to make the double profit. But then the guy over here, the next year, he's going to be given 100,000. He's going to have to spend 60,000 on his fertilizer because he killed the soil. He killed all the bugs that helped those watermelon grow. Now a bigger bug comes in. And then now, instead of getting 200,000 a year with the watermelon, he stripped the soil. He put in more fertilizer. He's going to make less. Instead of the 200,000 in watermelons, now he went to 150. He's like, wait a minute, what happened? Now the guy over here, he only made 150 the first time. Within the second year, he didn't use those chemicals and inputs. He used some tools that were turning over the soil. He was mulching. He was companion planting. Even maybe out of the 100,000, maybe he spent 80 on the watermelon seeds and 20 on some onions and some rosemary and some marigolds that he planted with him. Then he got only 150, and the guy got 150 in the second year. But in his second year, he got 200,000. Then in the third year, this guy is now using 70% more, less profit on the seeds and more on the fertilizer. Constantly, it's addictive. It's constantly, you got to do more fertilizer, more pesticides, because you're constantly killing the environment. So you got to do more, give more. This guy is spending less and less money, and his numbers are going up and numbers up. So we go 5 years later, this guy is 300,000 in the hole. This guy is 300,000 in the green. What are the difference? What are 10 steps ahead? You depleted and ruined your soil. Not to mention, his watermelon is selling at $5.99 a pound. And his watermelon is going to be 22 to 30 pounds. This is true facts, by the way, because I had to do this last week for a grant with the USDA. And I'm going to have to share my research because they don't have no statistics on specialty crops. So we just closed out January 10th, marking assistance for specialty crops. It was called the MASC grant. And we had to fill out all of our crops and the potential money we can make. Potential. And I had to show them, when you research, you ask Google or ChatGPT, what is the average annual yield of a watermelon crop? And you tell them and calculate for your space. You need to use the highest number, because if you are this guy, his number is lowering with every year. And I can prove it to you because we have the numbers of how much the crops were in 2010, 2012, 34. We have historical prices. Over here, that is why organic is so high. Well, if we go ahead and test the nutritional value, your watermelons are very juicy, but they do not taste nothing like this guy's watermelon. So sweet. Oh my gosh, like candy. It is so good. And it's so juicy. And if you go buy one of them, that's a lot of money, $5.99 a pound. You know that the organic watermelon averages like 33 pounds. I had to weigh it and figure it out. And I was like, oh my God, $5.99? Oh, I'm sending somebody to college with this money. But over here, you're constantly taking away, and you're putting in a lot of work, putting that chemical, a manual work. So the long-term cost. Also, you mentioned nutritional value. There's going to get to a point where we're going to say, why would I pay this much for yours? Well, because eating that watermelon made your potassium levels and your mineral levels so high naturally from just eating a few slices that you could go all day. You don't have menstrual cramps. You don't have brain fog. But over here, you're going to eat about 6 of his, and you still hadn't got the nutritional content. You see?
Yeah. And let me just interrupt because we're running out of time. But the piece that you just mentioned, we need people like you to help people understand, is that they have to listen to their body, because they won't know that. They don't care. They're not going to believe you. It's got to be something where you do what you do of inviting people to your farm and educating them and letting them taste, this is a conventionally farmed watermelon. This is a regeneratively farmed watermelon.
Yes.
Here is the data that supports this, and it's so important to have an example like you set in these really dense urban environments. Like the fact that you have a farm in downtown Dallas, that is unique in and of itself. And that you are willing to use that as a teaching tool for your community is everything.
It's, and you know what? I was very blessed by that. And I wanted to say too, another big part of Soilutions is also for the manufacturers and the people making the city in the buildings. You're depleting the water. And so now you're harming the environment, so where these super storms and this extreme freeze went from 65. I left one day 62 degrees. And then that night it was 22 degrees. The water I put out for the chickens was a frozen block by the next morning. It's extreme. The flooding in the cities, that's coming from the constant chemicals in this soil. That soil is the solution. I hate to be finicky,
I love
But
it.
you take care of this soil, and we can stop worrying about this toxic water. Texas is actually having a serious drought. Our lakes and the rain is not staying in the soil, and it's so much so now the commissioners talk about pumping water out the lakes, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, guy, let's talk this out.
Yeah.
But we have to give all of them some grace. It's going to take a shift because it's just, we're only one little generation away. Your dad was the conventional farmer. He's raised you guys, the ranching, all of the legacy that he has left came from conventional farming. So how are we going to tell you that you were doing the wrong thing? What we have to tell you is you were amazing, but now we're going to add to your legacy. We're going to
Yes.
improve and make sure it can go further. But if we keep going this way, you know what you don't know, you don't know. I'm also trying to get the city officials or someone that is in charge of the land and manufacturing. Hey, I need y'all to plant some herbs and flowers and some grass on the side of this highway, please. The water's running into my neighborhood. It's bringing chemicals into the neighborhood. Can y'all stop
Yes.
spraying? Stop coming with the truck, spraying through the neighborhood for the mosquitoes. I need to, and it's just a shifting. It's a big shift, but we won't have a future. We will have a city that's just going to wash up, burn up.
Yeah.
But that's a
Yeah.
separate topic right now.
So, how do you get people to join you in this fight in your own community? And I don't even want to call it a fight because we're lovers, not fighters.
Yes.
So, how do you get people in your community to join you? People that are listening in other areas can know, like, hey, yeah, I can rally my community to do this.
I ask that someone just considers it's three things that you should get away when you've experienced me, you've been around me. I either want you to one, consider what you're putting into your body, where you're getting that food from. If that's at a minimum, everyone's not going to garden and surely not farm. Everybody's not honored to work the land. It is a privilege and an honor, I tell you. But
Amen.
we are working on the food for the whole nation. So think about where your food comes from. You don't have to ship it from Mexico and from other countries and so much money, gas and fuel. Get it locally grown. There are people growing produce right in the neighborhood. That's one thing. The second thing is, but if you do have the permission to grow something, let's start small. Let's start with a container with some jalapenos in it, with some lettuce in there, with some simple green onions, scallion onions. They grow really fast, super easy. And once you start growing one thing and you eat it, your kids eat it, y'all hooked. We got you. And
Yeah.
then and then lastly, just start just having more of a respect for your community. So you can find Soilution Holistic Ag on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. TikTok's my favorite because you actually see that I'm real. I'm actually a real urban farmer. You'll see me get off the highway and pull up on some chickens and some horses and see that it's real. So I would love for anybody to come visit. I'm going to have workshops live where I'm going to be talking about healing. We're going to be tasting food, different events. So I'm going to motivate you to either buy local organic, which means locally grown. They're not using chemicals, or grow it yourself. But lastly, I want to just have a healthy respect for the farmer. You have to know how much work and dedication it takes to provide something that you very casually go into the grocery store and buy eggs, lettuce, bell peppers, onions. Food is getting very expensive. Respect your environment, respect. Please stop spraying to make the grass pretty and green. Please come follow
Yeah.
me and watch me so you can learn some natural ways so we can get the bees and the butterflies to come back to the city, so we can get the healthiness in the trees, get a respect for the community and the environment together. It's an urban ecosystem. So if we can respect the urban ecosystem, we can go back to being healthy communities. Especially, I really want the people of color to be more invested in what we're feeding our children.
I love that. And did you get the email that I sent you about the woman who does the urban ag subcommittee for the state?
I think I did, but I just came back from San Diego. I just learned how to help farmers with another side, a major issue with farmers, the money side. Oh my
Yes.
God. So I was burnt. They
Yeah.
really put in a lot of information. And then we just finished that grant. So I'm just exhaling.
Yeah. Well, good.
And I was
Well, I'm
so happy.
excited to have you included on the urban agriculture.
I'm trying to get Jasmine Crockett to stop fighting with the people up there in DC and stop fighting with the other guy with the orange skin. Just stop arguing with him. Come back. 'Cause she's over the
Yes.
agriculture committee. She's also my congresswoman. So
Awesome.
I'm trying to make that connection again so we can make some changes in Texas.
Good.
Well, I love that. If you want to learn more about Arlana and what she's doing, her website is soilutionholisticfarm.com. And in the show notes, you'll find a link to her TikTok and all the things that she's doing. Arlana, thank you so much for being such
Pleasure.
a beautiful example of someone who's walking the walk and doing it in a way that is fun and joyful and thoughtful. You are an amazing soil sister and keep doing what you're doing. We are huge fans of yours.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
Thank you. And I'm fans of you guys. Thank you so much for this platform and just being my amazing soil circle. And don't forget that Soilutions, it is the solution, but it's SOIL, Soilutions.
I love it.
Yes, yes. Sister, any parting words?
You're an inspiration, Arlana. Truly, just the energy that you have and the knowledge that you've gained and that you are sharing this wisdom with so many people is a blessing to your community and your family and your state. We appreciate you and just keep going. And we're excited to see what happens and
Thank
how
you.
we
Thank
can
you.
collaborate down the road. Yeah.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. It's an
All
honor to
right.
serve outside the uniform.
I love it.
Yes. And thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Connect with the Soil Sisters at txsoilsisters.co. Submit questions, guest or show ideas, and sponsorship inquiries. The Soil Sisters podcast was created and produced by Joanna Nuding. Editing and sound design are in the capable hands of the PodConnects Podcast Network.